Hello class, this is lesson 2-6 about how to solve proportions. When we're talking about a proportion, we're talking about an equation that is stating that two ratios are equivalent to one another. Again, ratios look like fractions. And so if I have A over B, and that's equal to C over D, also, what I could do with this is I could do what is called cross multiplication. So A times D is equal to B times C. And we're going to use that today. First, let's solve x over 45 is equal to 15 over 25. One method is to multiply both sides by the denominator to get the variable on top by itself. Then I can see that the 45 and the 25 can simplify with one another, as well as the 15 and the 5. And then I'm just left with 3 times 9, which is 27. So this first one was a fairly straightforward proportion to solve. And just like our equations, if you want to check to see if your solution is correct, you could just plug it back in. So 27 over 45, is that equal to 15 over 25? In this case, I could simplify both of my fractions to see if they turn into the same fraction. And let's see, yep, they both simplify to 3/5. So my solution was correct. Let's move on. In my next example, the variable is on the bottom, so I need to use cross multiplication. And I'm also going to make sure that I group together that 8 minus x. So it's 2 times 13 is equal to 5 times the whole quantity of 8 minus x. 2 times 13 is 26, and then I can use the distributive property. 5 times 8 is 40 minus 5x. And now I can solve my equation. Let's subtract 40 on both sides. That leaves me with negative 14 is equal to negative 5. And then on both sides, I can divide by negative 5 to get the x alone. And my final answer is 14 over 5, or I could rewrite that as 2 4/5. And that is my solution. Let's go ahead and move on to another variation. This time I have a variable on both sides. So I'm still going to use cross multiplication, and I'm going to keep the 2x minus 3 grouped together. So 24 times x is equal to 9 times 2x minus 3. I'm going to use the distributive property, so 9 times 2x is 18x. 9 times 3 is 27. I can subtract 18x on both sides of my equation, and I'm left with 6x is equal to negative 27. My final step now is to divide both sides by 6, and I'm going to get a fraction. I'm going to simplify it by dividing them both by 3, which leaves me with negative 9 halves, or negative 4 1/2, and I'm done. Now for the last example here, both variables are in the same ratio, so I still need to use cross multiplication and group them together. So on the left, 9 times 2x minus 5 is equal to 4 times 4x plus 3. I can use the distributive property. That gives me 18x minus 45 is equal to 16x plus 12. I can subtract 16x on both sides of my equation to combine the variables. That leaves me with 2x minus 45 is equal to positive 12. Now I can add 45 to both sides to get rid of the lonely number. And now I have 2x is equal to 57. Final step, we will divide both sides by 2. And so x is equal to 28 1/2. And that's my final answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at some real life problems. Parts of Mexico City are sinking at a rate of 140 centimeters every 5 years. That's crazy. At this rate, how many centimeters will it sink in 12 years? So let's set up a proportion. I'm starting with 140 centimeters for 5 years. That's the initial rate. And since I don't know how many centimeters, I'm going to put a variable x compared to 12 years. And now I can use cross multiplication. And what I'm going to do to make it simpler is I'm going to simplify that 140 over 5 before I do anything else. And that's 28. So I'm really going to be multiplying 28 times 12, and that's going to equal x, which is what I'm looking for. So when I multiply those, I find that it is 336 centimeters. So that is estimating how many centimeters it'll sink in 12 years. Moving on, you want to buy a new car and save $270 every 5 weeks. At this rate, how much money will you have in a year? So like we did above, let's set up our proportion. $270 for 5 weeks. And that's equivalent to, well, I don't know how much money, so that's my variable. And a year is the same as 52 weeks. So I can write that down, 52 weeks is my denominator. And now I can go ahead and cross multiply. And again, I'm going to simplify the 270 divided by 5, which leaves me with 54. So in the end, I'm going to multiply 54 by 52, and that's going to give me my x. So in the end, I will have about $2,808 in 1 year. All right, here's my final example. It says, a company is making a new trail mix with raisins and mixed nuts. If they want to have 30% raisins, how many pounds will they mix with 14 pounds of mixed nuts? So really, I'm going to compare the raisins to the entire trail mix, which includes raisins and mixed nuts. So I'm going to use R to represent my raisins, and the trail mix is that raisins plus the 14 pounds of mixed nuts. My raisins is equivalent to 30%, so that's 30 out of 100. And now I can go ahead and cross multiply. I can cancel out the zeros, and so I'm left with 10r is equal to 3 times r plus 14. When I use the distributive property, I have 3r plus, let's see here, 42. Now I can subtract 3r on both sides, and I'm left with 7r is equal to 42. And when I divide by 7, the raisins will equal 6 pounds. So that is how many pounds of raisins I need for 14 pounds of mixed nuts. And that's it. So to conclude, I have 2 problems for you to solve on your own. Go ahead and try them out, and I will see you in class.